This is the Samsung Alias 2. I recently saw it on Mr. Mobile, and he shows a very interesting feature. You see that? It's a display with buttons over top of it. Specifically an e-ink display. I've also heard it called e-paper. So what is an e-paper display? It's a display that even without power, it will display an image. And as soon as I saw this, I immediately had to see if someone had an explanation of how it worked. And no luck. I couldn't find anything. So I thought I would buy one and share it with you. I find this technology fascinating because it's an idea that had been brewing in my head for quite some time. I had no idea that Samsung had already done it in 2009 because I think this is the solution to touchscreens. It has the best of both worlds. You get your physical buttons so you can feel, but you also get the flexibility of software updates. So first thing I want to do is just see if it'll power on. Of course, Samsung doesn't put the polarity on their batteries. So let's see if we can find out which one's which. If I have guessed correctly, we should have power. This may actually be dead. So supposedly this is the power button, and I am not getting anything. No. No luck. Oh, there it is. Look at that display. Alright, so that is it working. What I really wanted to show off was this display. So you can see in this orientation, the display shows up like this. But then when you flip it, the display changes to a full QWERTY keyboard. And once again, if we kill the power to it, the display is still static. Just on a side note, I probably would have hated this thing if I ever got it back in the day, because I like to do this for fun. But as you can see with this phone, I'm struggling because it wants to open sideways. If I did it with my other hand, where the hinge is not, does it fine. But anyway, I just wanted to show off the display and how it can change based on the orientation of the phone, showing off that it is indeed a display and not just a button array with some pictures behind it. So next step is I want to take it apart and see how it works. But the first thing I noticed when I was looking at it, if you kind of get it in from a side view, you see this? When I'm pushing on the button, it looks like the image is moving as well, which I find very unusual because sure, my first assumption of how they would have done this is that they would have put the display down and then put a grid array on top of it. So I find it very fascinating that the button image is moving with the button. I don't know how well that shows up on camera. Let's see if I can... Oh, that was interesting. What did I just open? Open up contacts, now it has a different display even though it's still in the landscape orientation. Now there's a great example of that. The image is moving with the button. Surely they did not just make individual screens for every button. That just seems like it would be insanely expensive. But let's take it apart and find out. Another little quirk of this phone, it almost looks like it has a connection for an external antenna. Wonder what that's for. So that's somewhat as expected. We have a e-ink display that's independent from the buttons. Interesting enough, they actually draw the outline of the buttons in the e-ink display. You can see the diamond shapes in between each button. But as far as I can tell, this is just a e-ink display. There's nothing special about it. So we'll dig into what makes the buttons work next. This I'm pretty sure is just a black border. We'll test it for continuity. It looks like plastic though. I don't think it serves any purpose being on the border of the buttons. Now, if we take a look at the buttons themselves, they are dome shaped on one side, so that's what gives our button feel. But on the other side, they are flat. Though if I squeeze these, I don't feel the tactility anymore. So I'm not getting that button click like I did before. So this may just be a piece of plastic. Maybe nothing special about this. We'll keep digging. Okay. So there is something interesting. This is a flat e-ink display, but the button click happens beneath the display. So I can feel the display move and click the button. So my previous thought that this was just the display is wrong. There's more to it than that. This display actually flexes and the button is underneath it. So we'll keep digging. I'm pretty sure then that this is just a piece of plastic with the dome shapes on it to kind of guide your fingers into where the buttons would be, give you that haptic feedback. Otherwise, you just end up with like a touchscreen feel, right? It's flat. Like there's no way to tell where all the buttons are. And then of course the layer on top of that, this was just there's a piece of metal, kind of shows where all the buttons were. So I think the next step will be to take this layer off and see what's going on underneath it. I have a hunch that it's just a bunch of dome buttons. And maybe e-ink displays are thin enough that they can flex into those buttons and not have an issue like you would an LCD screen where it's a big piece of glass. We'll keep digging. So that does appear to be what it is. It has a very thin display on top of it, and this is the e-ink display. And then right below that is a grid of the little dome-shaped buttons. It's just they're stamped pieces of metal that collapse when you press on them. So by pressing down on the display, you're flexing the display and pushing into one of those buttons. And it just seems like the display itself is flexible enough that it doesn't press the adjacent button. So this technology must have purposely chosen the e-ink display. I've never taken apart an e-ink display. I did not realize that it is printed on something so thin. Somewhat flexible. I think if I pushed it any farther, it would actually break. And if we could not build this out of a liquid crystal display, for example, because the display would be too thick, as it's made of a couple planes of glass, so you wouldn't be able to put the buttons behind it. So that's interesting. It doesn't quite work the way I thought it would. It doesn't line up with what I had assumed it would work like. Like I was thinking you would put some sort of array of millimeter wide buttons across the top of it that you'd be able to press on and then see the display through those buttons. So that's interesting. And I hope you enjoyed this little teardown, seeing how this display worked that Samsung made in 2009.